What if everything you knew about the most famous disaster in history was just the glistening tip of the iceberg? We are used to blaming a block of ice, but the truth is buried much deeper, in the dark vaults of London bankers, in coal bunkers that smoldered for weeks, and in the cynical calculations of men whose names are still spoken with reverence. Today, we strip the gilding off the Titanic. Forget the Hollywood romance. We are diving into a world of ruthless business, fatal coincidences, and a conspiracy paid for with 1,500 human lives. Have you heard of the ship swap? Of the fire that turned steel bulkheads into brittle glass? And why, on that fatal night, was there not a single pair of binoculars on the bridge? This isn't just a shipwreck story. It's a haunting chronicle of criminal arrogance, where every mistake was paid for in blood. Brace yourselves. We are descending to the bottom, where the dead have kept their secrets for over a century. 1909. Belfast greets us with mud under our boots and the smog of endless chimneys. 15,000 workers in greasy caps, rough wool vests, and heavy leather boots are raising a monstrous skeleton. This is not just a vessel. It is a raw display of power by the White Star Line in the desperate race for Atlantic dominance. Look closely at these rivets, 3 million steel and iron bolts. But here lies the first trap. Due to a shortage of high-grade steel and a rush to finish, the bow and stern were built with brittle pig iron, packed with slag. The company's chairman, J. Bruce Ismay, demanded luxury and speed, ignoring every instinct of safety. And behind him stood the shadow of financial titan, J.P. Morgan. This is where the chilling theory was born. Titanic was insured for a sum far exceeding its actual cost. Her twin, the Olympic, was already a broken liability. White Star needed money. They needed a fortunate accident to wipe away the losses. Could they have swapped the nameplates of two identical liners to send a wounded beast to be sacrificed in the open ocean?
Southampton, April 10th, 1912. A blinding, relentless sun. Ladies cinched in tight corsets, wearing massive hats adorned with ostrich feathers. Officers in midnight blue uniforms, laced with intricate gold embroidery. Titanic did not sail alone. She carried a secret, locked deep inside coal bunker number 6. Even before she reached the open sea, an internal fire had ignited. The fuel was smoldering at 1,000 degrees. Do you know what Ismay did? He ordered total silence, refusing to jeopardize his triumphant voyage. Stokers, their faces masked in black soot, were choking in the smoke, shoveling white-hot coal, while the elite upstairs sipped champagne. That steel bulkhead warped and became brittle, the exact spot where the ice would later strike. On board, the very crown of the global elite: Astor, Guggenheim, Strauss, billionaires with fortunes that could buy entire nations. But strangely, Morgan himself was missing. He canceled at the final hour, citing a sudden illness, yet he was seen in perfect health in France just 2 days later. A mere coincidence? Or did he know this unsinkable palace was destined to become a mass grave? Meanwhile, in the radio room, the Marconi operators are losing their minds, trapped among sparking equipment. They are missing critical ice warnings because they're forced to prioritize the private telegrams of the wealthy. Greetings from the ocean. We're drinking the finest wine. These meaningless words drowned out the screams for help that had yet to be heard. April 14th, Sunday. Captain Edward Smith, a seasoned sea dog, pushes the ship to its absolute limit through a graveyard of ice. Why? They say he wanted to claim the blue ribbon of the Atlantic for his final voyage. But there is another theory. The coal fire in the bunker was still raging. They had to burn the coal faster to put it out, racing toward New York before the ship exploded from within. High in the crow's nest, lookouts Fleet and Lee are freezing. They have no binoculars. It sounds like a cruel joke, but it is a fact. Second Officer Blair, who was replaced in a last-minute rush, left the ship with the key to the optical locker still in his pocket. A stupid, absurd detail that became a death sentence for everyone.
At 11:40 p.m., a phantom rises from the dark, a black iceberg. Because of the dead calm, there is no white surf at its base to be seen from a distance. First Officer Murdoch makes the fatal error. He orders hard a starboard and full astern. The ship loses steerage and exposes its flank. Had they hit it head-on, Titanic would have crushed her bow, but she would have stayed afloat. The iceberg didn't pierce the hull, it crushed it. Those cheap iron rivets we mentioned popped out like bullets. Water surged into 5 compartments. Architect Thomas Andrews, pale as death, delivers the verdict. In an hour and a half, this ship will be at the bottom. The nightmare begins. Women and children first? That was a beautiful lie for the newspapers. In reality, third-class passengers were locked behind iron gates below deck. Cold-faced stewards held them at bay, ensuring the elite could board half-empty boats undisturbed. The band played cheerful ragtime as the deck vanished beneath their feet. This was not an act of courage. It was a desperate attempt by the authorities to prevent a massacre in the crowd. 10 miles away sat the SS Californian. Her crew saw Titanic's white rockets, but Captain Lord, asleep in his cabin, ignored the reports. He decided the rich were simply setting off fireworks. Human indifference and snobbery were just as lethal that night as the freezing water. 2:20 a.m. The stern rears into the black sky, exposing the colossal propellers. The vessel snaps in two with a roar heard for miles. Boilers weighing hundreds of tons break loose, gutting the ship from within. Those who didn't drown instantly are plunged into water 2 degrees below zero. Death comes in 15 minutes. First, hellish agony, then a deceptive warmth, and finally, the end. 1,500 bodies in cork vests bob on the waves, looking like white birds. And then, silence. A terrifying, deafening silence, broken only by the rattles of the dying. Out of 20 boats, only 1 returned for the dying. Today, the Titanic is slowly vanishing. Extremophile bacteria are dying along with it, devouring the metal. In 30 years, nothing will remain of the great liner but a rust stain in the abyss. But her story is an eternal warning. No technological miracle can save us from human greed and stubborn pride. We are all still sailing on this ship, gambling with the elements in a deadly game of chance.